Thank you all for tuning in. I'm Selena Marche, and this is You Plus Happy. Each week, I bring you someone who challenges us to define happiness and success on their own terms with a dose of laughter. Remember to subscribe to the You Plus Happy channel on YouTube. It really, really, really helps. Just tell everybody you know to subscribe. And the show will change their lives. So that's the important part. And you can also follow You Plus Happy on Instagram at You Plus Happy, all spelled out. The plus is spelled out. This week, we have Noble Ward, CEO of Noble Paradigm and a Star Wars comic.
Star Wars comic, that's right.
Star Wars comic. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna get myself together, y'all. And he is a relationship strategist and comic book writer. And he had a podcast. I want to ask him more about that. But anyways, we welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me to do this. I'm really excited.
Thank you. Y'all, we met like the other day randomly in our building, and then he came on the show. So my point of saying that is like, just talk to people.
I think we met once, like a couple of months ago. Like,
okay.
I remember seeing you in here. Yeah, so you weren't like a new face. Yeah. But like we didn't really like chop it up much.
Yeah. So talk to people.
Yes.
Talk to humans.
Do that.
And then like you never know what's gonna happen.
That's the thing.
All right, we'll jump right in. And you can start wherever you want, but how did you get started?
With the coaching?
Well, so relationship strategist, he's a relationship coach, right. And that is in regards to romantic relationships, right?
Yes, okay. Yes. My specialty is I help high-achieving women manifest and maintain healthy, long-term relationships without sacrificing their ambition.
Okay, and how did you get started with that?
Ooh, long story. About I was really doing a lot of soul searching over 10 years ago, trying to really find myself. Through a series of events, serendipitous events, I ended up in Asheville, and I met a woman named Kenyon K. Stevens, who is a relationship coach. She has been doing it for a long time. She uses a lot of different, African modalities or ancient modalities in her coaching. She is a polyamorous love coach who teaches like when people how to have multiple relationships, ethically, honorably, without all the mess and jive. And meeting her really changed my life. It changed the whole trajectory of who I am and what I'm about. And after, I lived with her for a couple of years. I was around her in her orbit for a long time. I listened to her teach people. She would, helped her do things in her life with her children, and I talked to her husband, who was cool people, and after being around her so long, I just kind of fell in love with the concept. I really got to know myself better, in terms of how I relate with women. And she was able to point out some innate abilities in myself that I didn't really know that were abilities, things that I never knew what a coach was, what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like a thing. Like people are pretty much paying you to be like a friend who's smart,
Right.
But there's a little bit more to it than that, but that's how I saw it.
Okay.
And she convinced me that I would be good at coaching, that I would be good at doing it. And after talking to several women, helping them, understanding her modalities, really getting it and taking the classes and getting certified, I started doing it.
What classes did you take?
Well, on her site, she has an online academy called the Progressive Love Academy, where you can get taught in certain, again, modalities or courses or ways to coach people in certain aspects. I got certified in what's called the Feminine Power course, and I'm in the coaching guild too.
When you say manifest, what do you mean by
that? Pretty much we believe that, anything that we have in our lives, like we create our lives. It's the axiom of what, the whole philosophy is kind of based around. So when you're manifesting something, you just pretty much bring it into existence. You say like, man, I really want to get this certain car. You work at it, you save, you get your credit rights, and something happens to where boom, you get the car that you wanted. It's that color, all that stuff. You manifested it, through your own work and believing in it and thinking about it. So the same thing when it comes to an ideal relationship, manifesting that.
So they're coming to you to work on themselves, or because they've been. What do you see most typically? Have they been dating and it's just not working out? What stage are they? Where are they when they come to you?
Most women that I work with are typically like 35 to 55, right? A little bit older, not like young girls or whatnot. These women are typically high achieving women. So they're making upwards at least 75,000 or more,
Okay.
right?
Uh-huh.
And what they tend to find is that like men are intimidated by them.
Mhm.
Men aren't cooperative with them. They get with a man, and the man wants them to be all about what they're doing, and the man isn't doing stuff right
Mhm.
or whatnot. Or like they tend to be in power struggles with men,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Uh-huh.
They make quite a bit of money, but then they tend to have the ambition to be with a man who's outperforming them, right? So they're
Mhm.
making, here, they want a man who's making here.
Mhm.
And in their minds, they feel as though that they were told to be like a more domestic woman, and that
Mhm.
they're supposed to cook and clean and do all this, feminine stuff, but they've never really, that's not who they are,
Right.
really, but that's who they
Right.
were told they should be and what they think they're looking for. But
Mhm.
again, they're in these high powered positions or either making a lot of money or entrepreneurship, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
And they're used to doing things their own way for so long that trying to find a man cooperating with them is difficult.
Mhm.
That's typically the customer that I tend to work with.
So, what are some? There's a lot there. Well, one, do you work with them and who they are and challenging some of those some of that conditioning that comes from our
Well, what I
society?
like to do in the paradigm really is help them to see how they can be who they are and
Hmm.
get a loving, healthy relationship and
Right.
not sacrifice all the ambitions that they have for themselves.
Right.
So I'm helping them to choose a path. Really, I would call like there's modern women. The
Hmm.
one that Mr. Samuels used to talk about all the
Hmm.
time, right?
Hmm.
So there's women like that, typically who are my clients.
Right.
People who are in more modern relationships where the women are getting the bag, and then there's a more traditional setting.
Hmm.
What I basically do is just break down the differences in both so that you can decide which way you really want to go.
Right.
Because you could be either. And everybody has the capacity to be whatever they want, but you have to know what it comes with it and the responsibilities and how to have a healthy relationship within each dynamic.
Right. So understanding who you are
Hmm.
and owning that,
Yes.
and then knowing what your approach is going to be in a relationship, and like in accepting the consequences. And consequences is not the right word, but
In a way,
accepting that, yeah, because I think consequences have a negative connotation, but there's actions for
it's
every
more so the
reactions for every action. Yeah,
responsibilities,
yeah, yeah.
because each of them have a certain set of responsibilities that you have to, and accountability that you have to take
Right.
for it. So being able to take that on.
And no matter what you choose, there's responsibilities, right?
Yes.
So choose the one that's authentic to
Either
you.
one is work. Yeah.
What makes and so you help them learn how to, you said, cooperate in a relationship, or
How to find cooperation. Either if they want to be cooperated with or if they want to learn how to cooperate with somebody. It's
mm-hmm,
all about who's setting the sail in terms of how I set things up for the women. It's like, if you're going to be, they're what I would consider chosen women,
mm-hmm,
right? The modern women, I consider them chosen women, which are, these are women that men tend to choose. Men see you, they want to be with you, they want to attach to you for whatever reason,
mm-hmm,
not just because you're fine or whatnot, but
mm-hmm,
like you're doing your own thing out in the world and they're coming to you. So you're a chosen woman, right?
mm-hmm.
That puts you in a certain position in the relationship. It's much different than if you were to choose a man. Being that you're doing your thing, you see, oh, who is he? I want to know what he's about. I want him to talk to me. Like I
Mm-hmm.
want to position myself to be in his orbit to get to know him. That's you choosing rather than him choosing.
So when you're chosen, how do you approach those relationships?
When you're chosen, that typically means that you're more so in the lead of the relationship. That means you're going to be the dominant one because the other person wants to be attached to you. They're coming to you saying, hey, I want you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if they're wanting you, you have the responsibility to say, like, well, what is it that they would need to do to have you? And how do they keep you? How do they, how if they're going to, be somebody who's going to follow you or be attached to your ship and what you're doing, it's up to you to decide to tell that person how it's supposed to work.
Mm-hmm. Because they're already. Why is that? Because they're already getting something because they're with you.
Well, no, it's just that you are in the more power position.
Okay.
Not really, they're both are powerful, but you're more so in the lead position rather. Because again, like say for example, if you go to a store and you want to choose a certain hair product or whatever from the clerk or whatnot, if you want that product, they're going to tell you how much it costs for you to get it.
Okay.
Rather
Yeah.
than if you're walking by, somebody say, "Hey, you, I want you to sell this thing for me. Now they got to convince you of why you should do something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So every relationship you're saying has someone's the leader, and so there's a power
Yes.
dynamic no matter what.
Yes, and you have to have cooperation. Now, just because somebody may be the leader doesn't mean the other person has no say or
Right.
doesn't get to talk about things or doesn't have any consideration. That's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
But there is ultimately a decision maker. We talk about it. We go over the variables. You give me your input. I give you mine. You tell me what you would think, and then ultimately one of us is going to make the decision, whoever is in that position.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is what I think we need to do.
Yeah.
Regardless.
It's a team thing, but like there's the leader of the team,
yes.
or whatever. I didn't play sports.
Yes.
But what do you? So you help them get into these relationships, but are their relationships sustainable? Do they last?
Well, that's why I said help them to manifest and maintain healthy long-term relationships,
right.
because especially for modern women, getting into these relationships or these chosen women is a lot of responsibility that they're not really used to. You're going to be dealing with men who may seem a little bit more emotional than you would want. They're not going to be traditional in the sense of maybe providers. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be making more money than you. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They may not be the type of person that you can follow their lead in terms of, well, this is what he says he wants to do, and you feel comfortable, safe, secure, and surrendered in doing that. Mm-hmm. They may not be that type of guy. And there are a lot of men out there who fit chosen women, but I find that they tend to overlook those men. Right, because they're looking for what they would consider alpha men, because they don't want a beta man, right? Mm-hmm. But again, I don't look at it in terms of alpha and beta. It's just a matter of the type of man that really is suitable for you. Right.
Because of what you bring to the table and what you need. It's not like they were looking for the stereotypical kind of man, and that's not really what's going to fit their lives.
Right, especially because you're not the stereotypical type of woman.
Right.
So you can't expect that stereotypical man to want. It's the same thing again, like, there's nothing wrong with wanting what you want, but you have to understand what it is that it takes for you to get what that is.
Right. And do you think questioning why you want what you want?
That's part of what I have to get them to, right? Because a lot of times it tends to be conditioning.
Right.
I have to understand or get people to see that I'm 40. Mm-hmm. My mother is in her 60s, and so her grandma, she was born in like the 60s, and her mother was born in like the 30s, right? So our two generations or two parents back, like they were coming out of like survival based relationships, especially for people of color. What we were going through, what they had to do, like it was different. They didn't have the internet. They had to find who was in their block, or who was around them. And when they were together, there are certain things that they didn't fool with or mess with or emotions that they didn't really deal with because they didn't have any choice. Mm-hmm. Women didn't have the options to make as much money. My mother, having me in the 80s and 90s, didn't have the same opportunities to make the type of money that women today have.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but because of that, your women's options have kind of broadened, and because of their broader options means that they have to broaden their relationship structures or how the relationships look. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times women are being told by their parents or grandparents how the relationships are supposed to be based on how it was for them.
Right.
And times have changed significantly in the last 40 years.
And women's roles have changed, right?
Yeah.
And then we can challenge what kind of woman we want to be in today's society, because we say modern woman, but that covers so much, right?
It does. That's why I simplified it to chosen women.
Right.
Women who are being chosen by the men in their lives.
So it sounds like, all right. So say if somebody's listening, the steps are because they can't get coaching, they don't want to, and they're not ready. Knowing what you want and why.
Yes, that's the first thing.
And then what?
Well, know what you want to be able to decide between modern or traditional. Mm-hmm. Really do some research on that and see what it means to be a modern woman versus a traditional woman, and which way you want to really go with that. That's the first thing. And then you really want to do work on yourself to clear out any real stereotypes or obstacles that you or preconceived notions that you have around whatever it is that you want to be, right? Kind of throw that out the window and really start fresh, and then do some studying with people who actually really know about relationships. Find people who have the type of relationships that you want. You want to be married and have kids, talk to people who are married and have kids. Talk to people who've been married for 20, 30 years. See what they have to go through.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to find like most people I talked to before I got married, everybody told me, like, I knew there were going to be periods of times where, like, I know one person been married for like almost 30 years and they had maybe like a good 5-7 years where they couldn't stand their spouses. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's years sometimes of like, I just don't F with this dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But being able to get through that, and you're looking at 30 years, 7 are bad out of 30. You're up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's hard for us to know how to go through that stuff, especially in our culture where things are so fast and we can move so much and like.
And I think we're kind of sold that you're always supposed to be happy, always supposed to have pleasure, and when it's not like that, then you need to do something else to shift it. And it's like, okay, I don't think people. It was like the story, the programming, to keep not to overuse that word, but it's like. You get married and it's happily ever after. You know, I know we know that's not realistic, but we subconsciously it's like I still expect this.
And especially when you look on Instagram and people are showing you like their happily ever after moments. Right. You're not seeing where they're messed up or stuff or where they're having trauma. Like they typically keep that offline, unless that's their brand, unless you're like Blueface or something.
Yeah.
You know, but other than that, most people are going to show you like their best times on the internet.
But it's just not realistic. What is the, you said you talked to people who are married 20, 30 years. What's the most consistent, is there something consistent you heard amongst all those couples?
Consistent? It's kind of varied. It's just that they mostly were resilient. And a lot of them tend to be people who came from generational marriage.
Okay.
Right? At least on one side. You know, it's really difficult. It's not impossible, but it's difficult for people who grew up in families where nobody was married for more than 1 or 2 years to really have a healthy long-term relationship.
Yeah.
Now you can, but you have to really study relationships because you don't really know the example.
I think too. What do you think about like? In my mind, it's also sold as okay. You go on dates, you find somebody, you're together. And then it doesn't require a lot of work and effort. It's like almost what's sold to us. When in actuality, I don't know. What do you? Because you're like you study these couples and anything you want, you got to put a lot of work into it. So what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, there's that period of limerence, which is like the first kind of like the honeymoon phase. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
That part's easy.
Yeah, that's the part that really is easy. It's just that when that stuff dies, that's when the hard part really comes into play. Right. And it really comes down to, again, knowing who is in charge, like really agreeing. When I got married to my wife, we had discussions of like, who's choosing who here, who's choosing whom, like who is going to be leading the relationship, what type of relationship do we want, how we want finances to go, like because we were both at that point where we were like dating for marriage or whatnot, like we want to have kids. A lot of times people tend not to want to have those conversations.
Right.
You know, I know people, I've known people who were in a relationship for like 2 or 3 years and never discussed certain aspects that you would need for a long-term relationship. They just never even talked about it. You know, it's insane to me, but it happens.
What's the like top 3 things you think you should talk about for a long-term relationship in the very beginning? I'm not saying first date, but very early on.
Who's leading the relationship? The relationship style in terms of like if you want monogamy or polyamory or whatever the case may be, and children. Like how many children would you want or have, or what you want to do?
Okay.
Oh, and finances is a big one. Like what's your money habits?
I did a paper on number 1 cause of divorce in college, and it was money. I don't know if that's changed, but that was a long time ago. Okay, and then all right. So I think that covers like sustainability, like sustaining these relationships. When you talk to your clients about sustaining, when you coach them, do they kind of leave you once they not leave you, but they stop being your client once they find a relationship?
They can, and a lot of them really tend to. But like I'm in a network of coaches, so if they once they get done with me, I have other people I can refer them to.
Right. Okay.
I typically don't tend to do couples that much. I tend to
Okay.
work with the individual about their relationship. I'm not
Okay.
really like if I was working with you, I work with you, not you and your man. You know,
Right.
my wife sometimes likes to do couples or whatnot, but
Mhm.
it's not really my thing.
And what's one of when they're figuring out who they are and doing the work? What does that look like?
To like in terms of, like in the beginning for them individually.
Yeah, when you're yeah. When because to know if you want a monogamous relationship, to know the kids and the
Well,
what you need.
well, again, what I tend to do is go backwards.
Okay.
Because I tend to work with people who are 35 and up.
Right.
So you should have some type of relationship history. Actually, you do, no matter what.
Right.
Not 35, even if it's none. You know.
Mhm.
So I look back at their relationship history and go over like, well, how did this play out? How did this play out? What's your patterning? Why did you do the things you did? How do you feel about the things that you did do? You know,
Yeah.
and now okay, take all that into account of who you are now at this moment, where you're at in life, and where you want to go. It help us determine like what type of relationship is going to be complementary to who you are now in your forward movement.
Right.
So we got to look back first to go forward.
Okay. Look back first to go forward.
Yeah.
What and then this is my last question on the subject, but what about that makes you feel like you want to do that work?
I have a deep love and appreciation for women.
Mm-hmm.
I always have. I love something about me. I just love listening to them talk to me. I'm very much into relationships with other people, romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that is with me, but
Yeah.
I've always found it interesting. And once I found that I was good at it, you know, I am an emotional genius. I would consider myself. You know,
Okay.
I'm somebody who's very good at handling, dealing with, dispensing, penetrating emotion. You know, and I find that in order for us as a society, as Black colored people or whatnot, to really advance in our relationship habits, to lower this divorce rate and all that stuff, I really believe it starts with women in terms of what it is they are saying that they want and what they're willing to choose or be chosen by. Because a lot of if men are really honest, like 90% of what we do is for women in our lives. You know, the money we make, the cars we get, the accolades we're trying to get. You know, yeah, we want respect from other men, but a lot of stuff we do for other women.
Yeah.
Right? Because and if they are choosing a certain type of man, you know, iron sharpens iron. You know what I'm saying? So I just really believe that by helping them, I help the culture.
Okay. So switching gears to
I want to know about you right quick though. What's your relationship status like? How is things going with you?
Everything's good. Are you trying to get me you trying to recruit me as a client?
I don't know what your situation is. You might be married. I don't know. You might be pulled up. You might be good.
No, I'll tell you after the show.
Okay. All right. Keep it on me. I respect it.
But
excuse me, more
sure, please. So, I mean, we can circle back to that, but I did want to touch on, because another part of the show is we're shifting gears big time. Okay, we're going to talk about comic books, but because and I don't know if I was talking to you or someone I was talking to, and I was like, part of the show for You Plus Happy is just exposure of all the options, career options. So I know a lot of people are probably not growing up thinking I'm going to be not a relationship. You say relationship coach, but it's not the relationship.
It's like a relationship strategist.
A relationship strategist. People are not growing up thinking about that. And then I think sometimes when you read comic books, I don't know now what the kids are thinking, but when I was growing up, I didn't look at
I didn't either. It blew my mind when I realized people make those for money.
Right. I was like watching Disney. I was like, you can make it. You can work there. Like, what is this? And so I want to spread that not only can you make comic books, you can make a lot of money in it, but it's not just about the money. It's like you can enjoy what you do for a living.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing, because when I was growing up, I just saw a bunch of people around me who didn't want to go to work. And I didn't want that. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
We have a lot of options. So this is something else I didn't know about comic books. I didn't know there were writers and then there were illustrators sometimes. Like,
Yeah, pretty much all the time.
oh, I didn't know that. I thought you drew it and wrote it, but you can write the story. There could be a separate person who writes the story and then sends it to an illustrator who will then illustrate. Wait, do you do the storyboard? Do they do the storyboard?
Typically how I work is I'll come with the concept, I'll write a script in Word, I send it to an artist, the artist will draw it out, then he'll take his drawing, send it to somebody who colors it in, and then we take the colors into somebody who puts the letters and the words in.
Wow.
So it's a multi-step process.
And then there's a distributor too, right?
There can be, there is, places like Amazon now for people who are independent, and there's other ways to distribute it. But there are comic book distributing companies.
Right.
But you have to grow to a certain amount, fan base wise, to be able to make that viable.
But that also tells me not only can you do something that you like, but you can also employ other people and other people can have jobs because you're doing something that you like, and there's a domino effect to that.
Correct.
So I think that's an important part. But how did you get started writing comic books?
Well, I started liking comics when I was about 13, or with my first one.
Okay, what was the first one?
First one was, I bought two. My uncle took me to a comic book store in Detroit.
Okay.
And I picked up this Captain America. I can't remember what number it was, but I just remember I opened it up and he was fighting like everybody. He was fighting like 20 people, like villains that I've seen before and other stuff, like all the D-list villains. But he was just like molly-whopping all of them. So I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm gonna get this one. And then there was another one of Spider-Man at the time where he was fighting a Sentinel from the X-Men cartoons.
Okay.
So I remember that. So I was like, okay, let me check this out. So those are the two first comics I bought.
Okay.
And I always liked talking to my dad about comics because he was a big Batman fan. And I liked talking to him about who we were, Spider-Man, Batman. We would kind of go through this whole thing when I was a kid. And I would play the video games because they were really cool at that time in arcades, Marvel vs. Capcom, stuff like that. And then I just started reading them. And then over time, when I was in high school, college, I realized that people make it for money. And that was during the time when a company called Image had come out.
Okay.
And they were people who worked for the big companies, and they broke off, done their own thing, became independent, and had massive success. And then the guy who created Walking Dead and another comic called Invincible.
Okay.
He came out and he was, writing newsletters and stuff and doing interviews that I would read about how great it was to be able to do whatever you want and have no real editors telling you don't do this or don't do that. And I was like, oh wow, I really need to get in on this, So
where did you see this?
This was back in this is in the early 2000s. It was a comic magazine called Wizard, like an interview magazine, or different places on the internet where you would see, just interviews that they would do that I would read. And
then I cut you off. What else happened?
Then I just started to. I originally went to school to draw comics because I felt like I had to be able to do that. That was like, I loved drawing; it was fun. I never really considered writing to be a skill of mine. But then as I got into college, I found out I was just better at writing comics than I was drawing them.
Right.
Like as I was talking, I had an idea for one, so I decided, let me just write one out. I sent it to a friend; they really loved it. I was like, okay, well, if you really like that, like I got a bigger response from that writing that script and sending it around to people than I did from anything I ever drawn.
Right.
So that's kind of told me, like, you know what, maybe writing is something I should go in.
So you went to college to do comic books?
I did.
Okay, because of that article. What I'm hearing from that is read about. Like if you like something, I guess it's natural. Like read about it and be in the know. Because if you weren't reading about the Wizard magazine, you may not have known that was a viable career, right?
No, no, not in that way. Because at the time you would think, oh, I got to work for Marvel and do Spider-Man. I got to work for DC and try to get them. Like that was that big aspiration, and then it shifted toward the aspiration. Oh, I can make my own comics.
Right.
But then I have my own fears to kind of get through with that. Because at the time, when I grew up in West Virginia, nobody besides me that I knew liked comic books. I was the only one. And I didn't know a lot of black people who were really into comics at that time. Like these movies weren't popping like they are now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There was no Black Panther. Well, I knew about Black Panther since I was 13.
Right, but it wasn't.
Yeah, y'all just found out.
Yeah,
I was kind of mad, but I got
But I digress.
Yeah, but I was like, I've been in Wakanda. Y'all just got here.
Yeah, but that's what the importance of representation and
Hmm.
exposure and going, because I went to a book expo or whatever not that long ago. It was free, but there were so many black comics. I don't what
Hmm.
comic book makers. What do I say? What do I say?
Black comic creators is good.
Black comic creators there, and so that seeing that having that exposure is just I think so important. That's why y'all gotta watch the show so you can know because y'all didn't know
Hmm.
either. How did you get through? You said there were some fears that got you that you had to get through to
Well,
pursue
yeah.
it. So what were those, and how'd you get through
Well,
them?
the main thing was again at the time I didn't know a lot of black people doing it. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know any other black comic creators were out there.
Yeah.
I really wanted to make my character black, but I was afraid that if I did, nobody would buy the book.
Right.
You know, I
Right.
was like, oh, nobody's really gonna. Because I didn't see a lot of black characters. You only
Right.
see a handful in the mainstream companies at the
Mm-hmm.
time. You know, so I was a little bit concerned about that. I was a little concerned about being a black person in the industry,
Uh huh.
dominated by white people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget this girl I was messing with at the time. She gave me the best present I ever got. She, for my birthday, it was a black comics book.
Mm-hmm.
And what it was is these black comic book creators got together, made a book, and put themselves in it and their characters. So it was like, hey, my name is such and such. This is my character. This is what they do, blah, blah, blah. And there was like maybe like 20 or so black comic creators in there. And I was like, oh my
Wow.
God, they're out. I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Like there are actually
Yeah.
people doing it. And I got just so excited and so hyped. And that's really what I really kind of went full force into it. And the first thing I wrote was a novel, like a little novella for my comic character. Because at the time I had just written a novel, a murder mystery. So that was my second thing.
I knew I was gonna say. I know if you write as a writer, I know if you write comic books, you probably write more,
Yeah,
not just comics.
yeah, my first thing I did was I wrote a murder mystery because a
Uh-huh.
girlfriend of mine told me I couldn't. You know,
Okay,
she
it's a spite book.
it was in a way. I should have kept going and kept writing, but I just felt like I was kind of cocky. I was, oh, it's good. I'll be able to do this and do that and that,
Hmm.
and I just didn't kept doing the work like I should have. But she was a big fan of Eric Jerome Dickey. I don't know if you
Okay,
ever heard
yeah,
of
I
him.
do.
You
I
know him.
know. Yeah.
She would read all of his books, and I read a couple, and she would like love his books so much she would tell me about them.
Uh-huh.
Like, and I would be like, oh, I felt like I read the books. Like, I can't
Right.
remember which ones I wrote and which ones she told me.
Uh-huh.
Right?
He was popping back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I know he still has books, but
Yeah, in the
that
early
was the
two
height
thousands.
of his
Yeah, in the
career.
early 2000s, he was
Yeah,
popping
he
them
was.
out, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember I read one. I was like, that's all right. You know, I can do that. And she got all offended. She was like, you can't write a book. What makes you think he's been doing? I was like, I said I could write a book,
Uh-huh.
man. Then I
Yeah.
wrote one. But I couldn't write one like him though, because he's really hard in the female voices. But I wrote a really good murder
I
mystery.
know. Well, you said say less to her and you wrote the book. How
Yeah.
long was your book, your murder mystery?
How many pages? It was about three something,
How long
three or
did it take you to
something.
write it?
A couple of years.
I am so glad you said that because um, writing a book is so like that's it's a long it takes a
Yeah,
long time and
yeah.
you finished it. So
I
congratulations
did.
that you finished a novel.
It's a lot of it takes a lot of discipline. What I had to do, I was 27, I think, when I wrote it,
Uh
and at the time I was living by myself. I
hmm.
had no cable. I had no internet. I
Okay.
went to work. I came home. I worked on that book. And I worked
Wow.
out, worked on the book. I would watch TV when I visit my mom on the weekends
Right.
or something.
Right.
But when I was at work, I was like plotting the book out because I worked
Hmm.
at a call center. You know?
Those were those conscious choices or forced?
They were constant. They were forced consequences that turned into chosen consequences
Uh-huh.
because like the money got tight and
Right,
stuff.
right,
I had to
right.
cut this off. Like I'm a kid. I'm like 25,
Right.
and I graduated college during the recession
Hmm.
in the early
Yeah,
2000s,
yeah, yeah.
right? So there was no work or whatnot. So I was a broke kid out of school, working at a job I hated, and I got my money up to where like I was doing all right. But then I just like, you know what? I'm in a group. I started writing the book at that point, and the characters were so vivid in my head. Like I was living with these people. You know what I'm saying? There,
Hmm.
I was like, oh my god, it was such a fun process being able to kind of plot something out. I'm like, this is where I think the book. I remember the best thing that happened. I'll never forget. I had plotted that my female character Kamara was going to drive down the road. No, she's going to She's in West Virginia, where I'm from, and she was driving through the road, getting ready to go home, right? And I had to plot that she was going to say something to her grandma or her mom when she got home, when the conversation they were going to have.
Mm-hmm.
But when she was driving down the road, all of a sudden there was a roadblock, and there was these guys in the road, like had the car had the road blocked, and like she had the streets to a stop, and these guys came out and pulled her out the car, and I was like, "What the? Who is these people? What's going on?" I was like, and then this guy was talking to her about this stuff. I was like, "What? What is he talking about?" And then she pulled a gun out. I was like, "Where'd she get a gun?" I was like, "Oh, snap! How does she have a gun? Oh!" And then she went back up. I was like, "Oh my god, this is crazy!" Oh, and she surprised me. Oh my god!
But you know what? It's funny. I know script writers, and they said the same thing happens. Like, so, like, okay, and I know somebody else she was writing a book, and she was like, "It's going. I have to take a break because it's getting dark," and that wasn't the intention. But the characters are starting to get darker, and they're doing their own thing. And
my god, I loved it so much. I enjoyed that. That was probably one of the best times of my life.
You were writing that?
Yeah.
And then it just happened.
Yeah, like I had the plot written on paper. Okay, this is where she's going. This is where she's going. All right, I'm plotting out. And I was like, what the? Oh, what the? What? Oh, what? Well, I was like, well, that's what. Don't away my plot.
You know what? That's like what. I have a belief that I'm not married to it, but I feel like art is, you're a vessel, right? Mm-hmm. And it comes through you, and that's a prime example, in my opinion, of like they were coming through you.
Yeah, how I viewed it is like you're in a bus or in a van, and you're, as a writer, I was driving. Mm-hmm. I was in New York. I knew I wanted to get to San Diego, right? So I'm just driving in the direction I think I want to go, and I got my character who's telling the story at the time. It's my co-pilot in the passenger seat,
right?
And they're telling me which way to go, because at this time, this before GPS,
right.
So, but that's how I saw it in my head. It's like they're telling me which way they want to go.
Yeah.
And they may take me up to Detroit, and we might go down to Florida first. I don't know where. Eventually, we're going to get there.
Right.
But I don't know what turns they're going to take or what detours. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Would you write? I love that. Would you write another novel?
I would love to. I really wrote the novel for spite. And then I wrote another novel for my characters because I really wanted to write the comic book. I didn't really know how to transition into the comic book that quickly, and I just wrote a novel.
Right.
So let me just write another one to get ready for the comics. And I wrote the second one in 6 months.
Okay.
Because I had a good groove with that one. And what I should have done is kept writing, and then I could have had 10 books done by now. But anyway, so yeah, then I transitioned into doing mostly the comics in that whole world of trying to get it produced, which is it's just a whole different monster. You know, with books you could just write the book, get it edited, and then you could just print it
yourself. Why did you stop writing the books?
I really wanted to do the comics, and I really felt, being a little young, I just felt like I took it for granted that I would pop in a way.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, well, I'm sure this will take off, or I'll be able to do this, and then I can just come back to it. It's like I didn't realize how life in, you know?
Right.
And this again was before the internet was really. The internet was just starting to pop at that time, you know, with Facebook and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking that I could do something that I was able to do, basically.
So, okay, and then you were starting to talk about the production of comic books. You said that's challenging as compared to a novel.
Completely.
In what way?
Well, like I told you, you know, I'm just a writer, and then I have the artist, then I have the colorist, and then the letterer. All those people got to get paid.
Okay.
You know, for their time.
Yeah.
I'm financing all of that.
Right.
For the book that I have now, that cost me a good 8-10 stacks.
Okay.
You know, when it was all said and done over the course of the years.
Right.
You know, and I remember I moved to D.C. when I was living in Maryland for a little bit. I was living with my aunts I lived there for 4 years. I lived with her for like 3. And she didn't have me pay rent. And since I was, that's why she finally kicked me out. She's like, you gotta go.
blessed.
Yeah, I was, and I was the extra money I would get went to the comments. That's how I was able to slowly get it done.
Yeah, that does sound a lot different than getting a book edited, printed.
Yeah, and I was singular focused. Like if I would have just kept focusing on, like kept writing the books, I could have. Because the thing about books is longevity. If you write, five, no, three, four, five of a series of books, people think, oh, there must be something good here. Let me check them out. And you can kind of grow over time, like an Eric Jerome Dickey did. He didn't just write that one book and then sit it. You want another one. Then you want another one. Well, that was going to catch.
Yeah.
And that's what I should have did.
I see what you're saying. So be like, is the right word prolific?
Yeah.
Okay. So just write a lot. How do you stay? Okay. So how long have you been making comic books?
About 20 years now.
So, and then you've been a relationship strategist, Selena, for how
long? I've been studying it for over 10 years, practicing for 3.
Wait, which one do you like better?
I love them both. I do.
What if you had to choose? You're in a polyamorous relationship with these careers.
I am indeed. That's why I'm not polyamorous. That's why I'm not monogamous in real life. I don't see. You gotta have a balance in that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like they fulfill me in different ways.
Okay.
The comic books fulfill my inner child, like the inner part of me who was, wanting to, like my inner little boy part who wanted to connect with his dad or wanted to hang out with other guys and talk shop, and the other part is my part of me that loves women, that loves relationships, that loves love. I want to see Black women being loved on. You know what I'm saying?
How do you stay consistent in your career? So because life be life, but you have a family, and then you have essentially 2 careers at least. So how do you stay consistent and give to all of those, and then also take care of yourself in whatever way, how that looks to you?
I've developed uniquely to where, for me, self-care comes from helping other people. Just connecting with another woman, having a nice conversation, exchanging a little bit of a flirty energy. So it doesn't have to always be something, but that really helps me up. It really helps build me up. Being able to have some alone time.
I was just about to say, listen, helping other people is all fine and dandy, but you have to fill your cup.
So, in a way, and I think I'm a little unique in the fact that it does fill me to be able to have an exchange with other people,
right?
Especially
but you need
women.
Your alone time.
Yeah, I do. Sometimes I do need to be able to have a getaway. Get high, just be by myself for a second.
How long? How long does it take to recharge on average?
You give me a good. Really, if the weed's right, I could do it in an hour. It'd be real good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't need a lot of recharging either. I need it, but I don't need a long time.
Yeah, I don't need
I have to recharge. I need a second.
Yeah.
But if you give me a short, I'm okay. Just leave me alone for the.
Yeah, I think it may be different now that I have a son.
Right.
I'm really working a lot now, but once I get more involved with that and whatnot, and having kids around, I think that may change maybe. But right now, that's where I'm
at. Okay. So, but you said you're able to stay consistent because those things fulfill you.
Yeah, they do in a lot of different ways. Like being able to, the good thing about doing comic books is when I write a script, it's 20 pages, right, or 21 pages. Every time an artist sends me back a finished page or something I've done, it's like Christmas. It's oh yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
Oh, this is dope. You know what I'm saying? It's another. And then when I get into the colors, it's oh man, that looks awesome too. You know what I'm saying? It's always a big little surprise, another little, when it's right, another little boost.
Right, right. Okay, so we don't have that much time left, but I did want to because you're the second person in a row who has brought up polyamory on the show, and this is not a relationship show, and I don't talk about it very often, but I don't. In all fairness, I don't know what it is outside of the stereotype, the a one sentence negative thing, and I know I don't hear women talking about it as much. So I'm not saying it's not. Obviously, if men are in polyamorous relationship, women are too, because they're with them. But I just don't hear. I just haven't heard it as much. So what is it? Do you know what the stereotypes are that I'm referring to of what they are? And
I'll hear them if I know if you tell me.
just like not greedy, but just a man who doesn't want to be faithful, or you know what I mean, or he wants a bunch of women. So what is it in actuality? And like what? And I guess there's different approaches to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Polyamory, in the way that I do it, is
Uh-huh.
where each person in the like you have two primary people in a relationship, and each person has the ability, if they want to have loving connections with other people outside of the primary relationship. They can, but doesn't have to be sexual.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? That's not really a prerequisite. But it really just means that you love and care about other people outside of your primary. So just as an example, you would have other men that you love and cared about. I would have other women that I love and cared about. You may or may not have sex with those people, but those all, and same for me, but those people are part of our community. There are people that we're invested in, and they're invested in our lives. It's really just being able to have community of people that you are able to have sex with if you want to. But again, you don't have to do that.
You're not in relationships with the other people?
You can't, yeah, you consider that in a way. But like when it comes to, again, when I think of community, I think of like a group of people that love and care about each other, right? That support each other, lift each other up, all of that. A relationship, in the way that we define it now modernly, is just being you're having sex with somebody in a way, right? Like in terms of like what, because when it comes to monogamy, the whole key factor is just who you're having sex with, how many people you're having sex with. And when it comes to relationships, to me, there's multiple ways to be intimate. Whether it be like just emotionally intimate or whatever the case may be. For me, polyamory is a way to pretty much limit the options by which a couple can get divorced or can be broken apart. Because if I'm not jealous of you and who you're talking to and what you're doing with your time or your body, but you're still showing up for me in a way that makes me feel good and makes me feel loved, there's not really much that can bring us up at that point.
But jealousy can still come up, right? In polyamory?
It can and does.
Okay. I don't want to make, because I don't want to. I don't know about it, but I know nothing's a fantasy like where there's no trouble.
No, there's no such thing.
We're humans.
No, yeah,
and we're always gonna run into something,
You have to be able to mitigate those things with tools.
Okay.
You have to have relationship tools, but you need those in monogamy also.
Right.
And for me, I developed a system by which I would run my multiple relationships. It has checks and balances, and there's a structure by which I keep it in that helps the women I'm involved with feel safe.
Right.
And I'm not really doing that right now because I just had a baby, and my wife needs to. It's a whole thing, So let's just get the baby solid, let's be good, and then I still have other people I talk to, but like I'm just being real,
Yeah, I listened to this podcast, and one of the guys on it, it's not about polyamory, but him and his wife are, and he said something like, it's not, he said the misconception is like that you're some type of sexual deviant. And like, and what I'm hearing more and more is it's not just about that physical part. It's about a lot more than that, a lot more. And you're not always practicing.
No, yes, that's a whole different. Polyamory really, the sex isn't really a big part in polyamory.
Okay.
It's just a cherry on top if you choose to do that. But I can relate with you. I have friends or ladies that I would consider intimate friends that we will go out to somewhere, maybe hold hands, maybe kiss, but then that'll be it. And it's just like a little energetic boost, that would help me feel good as a man, and that would be it. So yeah, it does. Sex is more like even they wouldn't be considered deviants in my mind, but like a swinger, for example, that's purely about the sex. You just want to be able to have sex with other people, with or without your partner. So you do that, and then there's no talking to the other person or anything. That's a whole different dynamic.
That's just the physical stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I think there's room for all of that stuff for people who it resonates with. That's what you want to do. That's your lane, and I think you should do it. But just do it healthy. In a healthy manner, in an honest manner, and open. I think a lot of I think a lot of men tend to have a hard time being honest with women because, frankly, most men would want multiple women, but not many of them want to be who they cultivate themselves into who they need to be able to facilitate that in a healthy way. And they believe that it has to do with money. And it really doesn't. Like I had multiple women, and I was working at a tire store, making like $15 an hour. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, I'm sure you're not the only one, but
but they all knew too. Like I knew who they all knew each other. They talked to each other. Like there was no secrets. Everybody was good. Like you just got to know how to. You just got to give people the option.
But and it sounds like the like how we were talking about women working on themselves in relationships earlier. Like the men need to. People need to be. It sounds like very emotionally mature.
Yes.
And knowing who they are and what they're doing, and so it doesn't sound just like some. I don't know. Sometimes it's described in a way that's like, I just want this, and y'all got to figure it out, like without the consideration for, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what we would consider like polyfuckery. You know, you're just really just out there and just doing your own thing. Like it has to be a structure. Somebody has to be leading it. You have to know what you're doing, what expectations are. You have to make sure everybody feels safe. You have to be able to communicate. Like, there's a lot that goes into it.
I typically wouldn't even talk about relationships on the You Plus Happy show, but just like everything else, the show evolves. But the only reason that I even ask about it or let it happen on the show is because, like I said on the last episode of when you know what you want and you know what you can offer, it saves a lot of hurt in the long run. You know what I mean? So you're not out here telling somebody that you can be in a monogamous relationship and they're believing that they're in a monogamous relationship with you and they're not. And that's so painful, you know? So if we can just be honest with ourselves and what we're capable of and what we can offer, I think that's an important conversation to have and something to think about. And that's why I'm talking about it on the show for people who listen regularly. I'm not advocating for either way, because that's not my business. But I do think just exploring what's important to you and what you can offer is really important for you too. Because who wants to be out here hurting? I mean, I don't know, but I wouldn't want to be out here hurting people because I don't know who I am. You know what I mean? And what options are available to you.
Yeah, and men don't. I don't think men want to do that. It's just they don't really know another way. They don't think that women are going to accept them if they say, "Hey, I want you and I want you."
Right.
Well, they're not going to go for that. I got to get rid of one to get rid of the other. So I don't want to get rid of one, so I just won't tell her this. And then we're like, it's a whole slippery slope, you know. And it is difficult when a lot of men are pretty choosy. Like they want to choose the women that they want to be with, you know. And when they do that, it's like you're really kind of at the woman's mercy, and then they have to manipulate or lie or not tell the truth, so they will get chosen by the woman that they want.
Yeah. And you will run the risk. Say you choose polyamory or monogamy, whatever you choose, you are going to run into people who are not on board, and that's just part of it. So if you like Tammy, whoever. Tammy might not be into whatever you're into, and you got to just get over that and let Tammy go, because it's not right. You know what I mean?
That's difficult for men to accept.
Well, that's part of this. You got to accept that somebody's going to say no. Even if you did choose polyamory and you found, say, I don't know, you tell me, if you found two women who were like, y'all are good, and you want to bring on a third one, the third one you ask or whatever may say no, and that's a part you're still going to get rejected. Okay. Right? Okay. Because I think people, I had a guy talking to me. Go ahead.
Me personally, I don't really put myself out there to that degree.
Right.
I have conversations. I feel the vibe. If there is something there, cool. If not, I listen to what women tell me. You know what I'm saying? If you tell me that you're monogamous, that's what you're looking for,
I can't offer you that.
I'm not even going to, there's nothing to talk about.
Right.
We could be cool. We could be friends.
Right.
One of my best friends here in Atlanta, I saw her at a club. One day she sat beside me, we talked, we went on a date. It was very clear that she was very monogamous and I was very not. And we're still cool today. She got a nice boyfriend now that I met. Like we're still homies. She came and met my wife, you know, but like I knew from that moment there's no point.
Yeah. And I don't know about it, but I think too, what I've heard is like it feels like some men think, oh, if I do polyamory, I can just have all these women and everybody. I can just do whatever I want, and there's still guidelines. There's still parameter. Like,
Oh yeah, you're signed up for a struggle, dog. Like you do this stuff, like you need a course, you need training. Like you can't
yeah.
just go out here in the wilderness. Like these women will eat you alive, and you'll be all messed up. Like no, you need to be initiated.
Initiated.
Yes.
That's why I think it's important to have these conversations so people know it's not like if you don't know anyone who's done it, you don't know what stories you're telling yourself in make believe land.
Yeah, you're really just kidding yourself. Really, it's not easy. You know, even for me, and I'm good. I'm an emotional genius, and there's still I mess up sometimes. So like, I gotta take accountability. I gotta take responsibility. I gotta own up to when I made a mistake. I gotta get mad for 3 months because I made that mistake, and I gotta work my way through it. You know, like nobody's gonna. It's not gonna be perfect, but I'm still better. I still am qualified, I would say, to be able to do that more than most men because of my training I've had.
Right. Okay. All right. I think that's an important part of that. All right. I'm gonna close this out, but before I do, well, two things. One, I have to ask you what your definition of success is, because that's what the show's about.
For me, my definition of success is being able to just pay my bills, doing something that I don't hate every day. You know, just being able to afford a nice lifestyle, doing something that I wake up and I feel good about doing. You know, I'm being of service to people, or I'm making an imprint on history. You know, in the Black Indie comic space, I just want to be recognized as somebody who was a member of the Black Indie comic space, like a footnote, like, hey, Noble was here and he created this character and he was cool.
Right.
No. And be able to leave a legacy of people who got together and had healthy relationships because they met me.
Because at the end of the day, we all want love.
Yeah.
Right? So if we can help people have love in their lives.
That's what I want to do.
Yes. Okay. And I wanted to say real quick about careers now. It's a lot of things that you can do on your own. We're in this beautiful time where there's so many resources and like so many ways to get things done that we don't have to do traditional jobs or traditional things to make money. It's not easy, but
it's not
going
easy.
to a job you hate every day is not easy either.
I'd much rather have these problems than those problems.
Right. Choose which problems you want. Yeah. That's just the theme of the show. With relationships, with career, choose what problems you want. You're going to have problems, period. Yeah. That's the way it goes. But choose which one is worth it.
Yeah, before I'm doing what I'm doing now, I was working at a tire store. And slinging them tires was not fun. You know, I would much rather be trying to help people grow and make some dope comments.
That sounds way better to me. No shade to the tire store, though.
No shade. Hey,
you like doing that.
Some people liked it, though. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
You just were not one of them.
No.
Okay. And all right, that's all I have. Wait, do you have anything before we close out?
No. Just follow me on the Noble Paradigm on Instagram or on Star Ward Comics.
We say that part too at the end.
Okay.
I got you.
You got me already?
Yeah,
I'm set up.
No, it's okay. You know, a lot of people do that, so I should just
Notorious plugs.
I should start saying, like, I'm gonna let you plug at the end because
double plugs.
But no, I would never have someone come on the show and not plug their stuff. Okay. I want to ask more things, but I have to go. Everybody has to go. Everyone has lives. Thank you.
We can do a part two.
That's true. We're very close.
Yeah, this was very convenient for me. I don't know about you.
It was so easy. No traffic.
Yeah, I had no problems.
Well, yes, we can make that happen for sure. Thank you again, Noble, for sharing your time with me and inspiring listeners to redefine success for themselves. You can find out more about Noble on, here we go,
on the Noble Paradigm on Instagram and on Star Ward Comics on Instagram. Oh, and download our app, the Noble Paradigm app, the relationship app for purpose-driven women.
And I will put that all in the show notes, so check those. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Again, that I ask that you subscribe to the You Plus Happy channel. If you made it this far in the episode, you like the show. So share it, subscribe, and you can follow me on Instagram at You Plus Happy, all spelled out. You'll have you will see clips of the show. You'll know when shows are coming out, and you will be in the know. And I post cool stuff about other things I do. So go over there and follow, please, please, please. And I asked the guests to say the tagline, which is, "We'll show you our definition of success if you show us yours." It's long.
Yes. Well, we will show you our definition of success if you show us yours.
Thank you. Y'all hear stuff in the background. This is an indie show.
It is.